Our next speaker is Danielle Cortes DeVito. Danielle is an emergency manager, paramedic, emergency preparedness media consultant, and the founder of the National Association of Black Women Emergency Managers. Danielle.
Thank you, Donna. We as emergency managers are used to change, or at least after the last 2 years, we should be used to change. One change that we're seeing is the demographics in our workforce. Two great examples is the city of Chicago appointing the first African-American woman to be fire department commissioner, and the US Senate confirming the first woman to lead FEMA. I've spoke to many of you over the last few days at the conference, and you shared with me that you have similar experiences. But I'd like you to pause for a moment and consider something. Now that you began to diversify your agency and your organization, what are you doing to foster an inclusive environment? See, diversity and inclusion are usually in the same sentence. However, they are not synonymous terms. Diversity efforts are outreach, targeted outreach to veterans or people with disabilities. It could also be tracking promotion as well as pay rates across gender and race. So it's really important that we think about an inclusive environment. And what does inclusive environment look like? It's a little bit different. Inclusive environment is those employees or individuals showing up to work, having their voices heard and respected. It's also those individuals, when they have a contribution to work, that they're able to have a sense of belonging and that they know that work is valued. Years ago, when I was in paramedic school, I was assigned to a firehouse, and I was the first African-American to graduate from the program. I was also the first woman detailed to that specific firehouse. The challenge with this firehouse is the firehouse had one bathroom, and it had 3 doors. I'll say that again. So 1 bathroom, 3 doors. You could see how this could be a challenge for myself and my coworkers, having to announce or close is clear, okay, I gotta go. That is an extreme example of a not inclusive environment. So how do we get to the other side? I'm gonna give you 4 tools today to support your diverse workforce as well as do more than check the box. The first thing is inclusion has to be made a priority. And to be clear, inclusion is not just for a certain group of people. Inclusion is for everyone. Research shows us when we have an inclusive environment that there's increase of productivity rate and employees are happy. And that's what we want. We all want to be happy, go home and be with our families, especially after the work that we've had. So inclusion has to be made a priority, just as safety is. The second is your leaders and your managers, your field leaders and your managers. They're the ones that co-create this environment. They're the ones that set the tone. They're the ones that accept what is tolerated or what is not tolerated. They're also the ones that encourage inclusive language. So when you're talking in conversations or meeting, that inclusive language such as spouse or partner, and email signatures. The email signatures for allowing employees to use she, they, he, or however they identify. That's just a step towards having an inclusive environment and having that language, and your managers co-create that. The third thing is you want to make sure that you have update and make sure that you have a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. When you have that policy, you want to use subject matter experts. Yesterday, we saw that the dogs, support dogs, we saw that. You want to have people who are able to help you and who are subject matter experts. So the work with equity, diversity, and inclusion, it's been around for years. But when you're writing your policy, you want to make sure that you use the subject matter experts who've been doing this for years. You want to make sure that you're using them as have buy-in and also have that participation. So you want to use those subject matter experts and don't write that policy by yourself. Get that buy-in. The last thing that I want to talk about is having cultural competency included in your training. So no one is expected to know about every race, culture, or even religion. But you want to make sure that you include cultural competency, so when you're at the disaster or when you're integrating with people that you're not familiar with, that you can be respectful. One of the great programs that I like is the Health and Human Services, or HHS. They have a great online program designed specifically for emergency managers as well as emergency responders. So that's a great program that you can look for, include that into your training. So in closing, I want to make sure you and your organization show up at the next disaster as a cohesive team, not just at the disaster site, but also back at the office. Thank you.